All good.
I haven't shaved this morning or done my face.
That's all right. It's allowed.
Whether the sun caught me, I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, so we were talking about your childhood,
But,
and we were talking about, what you did you get an allowance, what you spent your money on, and things like this. A couple of other things, and so did you actually have any pets as a child?
any?
Pets? Did you have like cats, dogs, fish?
Yeah, we always had a cat and a dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember them very well, or what their names
Names,
were?
don't ask me. What they look like, don't ask me. But all I can always remember is sort of going in the front room, there's always a piano.
Mm-hmm.
There was always a cat around. For some reason, we seemed to get female cats that had kittens. And that happened as I got older.
Yep.
So there was always a cat and a dog and kittens. I don't know where that dog came from. Mickey the cat. I used to like Mickey Mouse, Mickey the cat. I nicknamed your land Mickey. That's the one that she didn't give me a clip round the ear because she obviously thought I meant Mickey Mouse, but I wasn't that at all. It was just a name that I liked, Mickey. Anyway.
Do you remember what type of dog it was at all?
It was a mongrel of sorts. It wasn't a breed or anything, It was just a mongrel. I think I had mongrels all my life. The last dog we had was a Manchester Terrier, and that was named Mickey as well.
Do you remember how old you were?
Well, from the first dog, when I moved into Chichester Road, I went to Chichester Road School, left Cotton Road, so I mean, it must have been there when war started, because the woman a few doors along, my father threw a firebomb, an incendiary bomb, through a window. It was burning. It came right through the house.
Yep.
Right through the roof, through the bedroom, and fell on the front room floor. My father grabbed a big shovel. I don't know where he got that from, and he threw it through the window because he couldn't sort of carry it through the door. Too precarious.
Yeah.
The cat's name I can't remember, Mark, but it was a black cat when I was at Chichester Road. I bought a cat home from school when I was about 8 or 9, I think, and that was a Persian cat, black, white, and different colours, fawn, ginger. Anything else you want to know about the cat and the dog?
No. Did you ever have any pets as you got older as well, or was that? Did you?
Yeah, no, I had other pets a lot right the way until I left home. Met your mum and we got married and we moved we bought our own house in Chichester Road.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I was in the RAF. I can't remember a cat and dog there. But then again, we were married, so we were well into our 20s, I think.
Yeah.
I hope I'm making a bit of sense to you. I don't.
It's all good. It's all fine. Okay, so not so much when you were older, but again, back to your childhood. Did you ever go on holidays or anything like that at all?
Can't remember going on holidays. Go down to the seafront and things of that nature. I forget how old I was, but I remember, I'm not sure, it may have been my father's birthday, but getting on a green bus, that was the buses that went over the back of the hill.
Sure.
So that was really, to get on a green bus, I was on a green bus yesterday, my parents. Anyway, we went to this pub in Hambledon. We had a drink. There was my mother, my father, and me, and I think that's all there was. Just my two parents and me. But the only thing that I remember is I think we had what do they call it? Cheese and pickles and that sort of thing. Playman's lunch.
Okay.
So we had a playman's lunch with all the bits and pieces. And my father lost one of his pickled onions, and he got up. And I can remember he got up off his chair. Many people have heard this story. That's why I still remember it. He got up, walked across the floor, searching for his pickle, and eventually managed to pick it up. I don't know what other people who were in the pub. But he wiped it and he bloody ate it. I don't know, but I think he cleaned it in his handkerchief, I'm not sure.
Sure.
That's all I can remember about that. What was your other question?
Just whether you went, like, what holidays you might have had, where you would have gone to.
That holiday was a subject.
Mm-hmm.
Did we go away on holiday? I think the war, because I was only 8 when war started.
Yeah.
I was only just turned 8 on September the 3rd, and or 8 and a bit. So the only thing I can remember about holidays is going away to Old Basing, which is near Basingstoke, and stopping with foster parents. Told you this before.
Mm-hmm.
The foster parents we went into this hall when we got off the train and onto the coach or bus, and we were driven from, I think, from Basingstoke to Old Basing, which is a village 3, 4, 5 miles away, into this, the village hall.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a lot of people there, quite a lot of children, and lots of long tables, the fold up ones.
Yep.
6 foot long. People were there, lots of bits of paper asking us questions. Who are you, where you're from? Well, my brother probably did most of the talking because he went with me. So Jockey was about 2.5 years older than I was. Anyway, they put us to live with an ageing couple whose water supply was a well at the bottom of the garden.
Yeah.
Where we got the bucket, took it in, poured it into whatever containers they had. But I think we were too much for them, and we were moved. And so I was going to Chichester Road School, and the war was on. So I was more than 8 years old, so I was probably about 9 years old then. And we were then put with a youngish couple. They must have been 20 odds, maybe 26, 7, 8, 9, maybe 30.
Mm-hmm.
They had no children, so they had my brother and I. We were there for a few months, and Jockey was a bigger pain in the backside than I was, and he was taken back home. Whether they got rid of him or not and got onto the authorities and complained about him, but they seemed to take to me. They were quite happy to keep me, and so I stayed with them. Their name was Miller. They lived at, the house was called Ranworth Park Lane, and we could sit in the front room window, the window, that shape, and I could look out when we were having our meals, because that's where the dining table was, and there was a field full of corn every year. So I looked out on corn. So I always sat that side looking at the cornfield.
Excellent. What, when you were, again, the same age, childhood, you've mentioned a few things in previous conversations that about sorts of things you used to do for fun and things like this, but did you actually have any what you'd class as hobbies as a child?
I don't think I stole as much fruit when I was living in Old Basing as I did when I sort of came back to when I was younger at Pompey, when I was eight and a half to 9, I suppose,
Mm.
before we moved to live in Chichester Road to 159.
Like hobbies, like reading or stamp
I always liked
collecting,
reading.
or
I always liked books. Because my father, I said to him, I can remember my father. This is how I remember him: a chair, an armchair, a book open, not on his lap, but on his hand, and his head bowed. Very seldom did anything else,
yeah,
around the house, gardening, stuff like that. So used to cut our hair, repair our shoes, knit, because during the war, he was shell shocked and blinded by an exploding shell or bomb or something a bit further along that sort of buggered up his eyes, put him into hospital. Then they put him into St Dunstan's for a short while, and in order to keep him occupied, they showed him how to knit. And he could sit down in the wall, no sizes, and he knit a jumper. Normally it was a cable stitch,
yeah.
where the cable went round each other like that all the time, in straight line. Pair of socks, you knit socks. That's what he was taught to do when he was in the hospital for his eyes
Yeah.
during the war, 14-18 war. Ask some more questions, Mark.
I was going to say, so you said you liked reading. Do you remember any books you used to read as a child? Do you remember any stories
Books
or anything?
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a point. When I was, the school we went to was in somebody. It was like a big house more than a school. It was somebody's big house. They had sort of taken it over and made it in several large rooms and made it into classrooms. And I remember I said I was able to read and write when I first went to school. And I sort of took to books and reading. And and we had a competition at the first Christmas we were there. I was 8 or 9, that sort of age, when I think. Goodbye, that's when war started, so that's how.
Yeah.
And Pompey was getting bombed every Thursday down the dockyard. They were blowing up the ships. From Elsewhere to Nowhere was the name of the book. And that was the prize for the best essay.
Oh, okay.
I know it sounds as I do an awful lot of boasting, but that's how my life used to be. Things sort of happen, and which is why I get very angry now when I look in the mirror. Not that I like the bloke, but I can't remember and do the things that I did when I was younger. And obviously, it's got worse as time has progressed.
Yeah.
But I can remember basically Father saying about books, and if he was reading a book and there was something in there which caught his eye, he said, "Ken, you listen, son." "Yes, Father." "It says in this book," and he quote, "always look before you leap. Don't cross the road until it's clear." And the little snippets of things in the books,
Yeah.
he would read out to me. Not all the time, but occasionally he would say, "Oh, so and so and so and so." And if there was something on the radio, "Did you hear that, son?" "Yes, Dad." "Always put your right shoe on the right foot." That wasn't what he said, but they were things of that nature.
Yeah.
So technically, Mark, I suppose, I was getting further education at home, but I can't remember my father, or even who it really was, who taught me to put CAT means cat.
Yeah.
And DOG means dog, and DAD means dad. But
Yeah.
I obviously picked it up when I was quite small. And who it was, and whether it was I don't think it was my brothers. It might have been my sister, who
Yeah.
passed away a few years ago when she was 92. um,
Do you remember when you were that kind of age? A lot of children have like dreams of what they want to do when they're older.
yeah.
Do you remember what yours were particularly?
I should do, because I used to think about it, Mark. If I can bring the thought back. It was nothing medical. Definitely not nothing medical, because I didn't like medical. I didn't want to interfere with the person that was alive and maybe do something wrong.
Sure.
You with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll do anything. I'll climb a mountain, jump out of an airplane, all sorts. What did I want to do? My father never talked about the war, because when he was in the war and they went over the top, most of his battalion were all shot and killed.
Yeah.
And that upset him. Can I break in here? There was a film on at the Tivoli in Copner Road. We lived in Dartmouth Road, which is like here. So you know where the Star and Garter pub is in Copner Road?
Yeah.
And then that leads across the railway lines to Burfields. Well, just along from there, if you remember the school, what was I going to tell you then? I thought I'd get the description right and forgot the bloody story.
Film at the cinema.
Sorry?
Film at the cinema.
Oh yeah, that was it, the cinema. There was a film on. My father said, I'll take you to the cinema. And it was wartime, so I was gone 8. The war hadn't been long, but this was a war film. I don't know why I wanted to see it, so my father said, well, I'll take you, because he had to cross over Copner Road to get to the other side of Copner Road, go past Chichester Road, and then into the cinema, which was the Tivoli. I can't think of the war film. Anyway, there was a scene in this film, I can't remember it exactly, but my father got very upset. He said, can you manage to get back home? Can you ask somebody to bring you back? Yes, Dad. He said, okay. And are you sure? Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to go. He says, I don't like this film. Obviously, it reminded him too much, because practically half of his regiment were killed, all his mates, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was my father leaving me in the cinema to finish it, because I was quite enjoying the film. You know, I mean, what did children play? They get a gun, shoot, bang, dead. You're German, I'm English, right? You're dead, you know. So that's how we played. So cowboys and Indians and guns and things of that sort was all the rage.
Yeah.
Airplane flying with your arms stretched out. Anything else I remember in regards to that? What was I going to do was one of your questions.
Yeah, that's it. It's just like, what do you remember? Make a similar question then, but asked differently. Do you remember the first time you had an idea of what you wanted to do?
No, because I used to help the baker, I used to help the vegetable man, and I used to help the milkman. But I was about 8 or 9. Because I got a cake or an apple or something, or even a penny piece or a halfpenny.
Yeah.
Because you could buy sweets for a farthing, which is a quarter of a penny. And there were 240 of those in the pound in those days. My brain's not very good today, Mark. I'm sorry to say,
That's all
but
right.
I didn't want to put you off because you sort of set your time up. Can you hear what I'm saying? All right.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, good. I just hope my voice isn't as splurred as his brain is. Um, what did I want to be? What was it? I think, like most children, I wanted to earn a lot of money. I wanted to be clever. I wanted to know if a person asked me a question, I could tell him where the street was, the cinema was, what you have to do if you fall down and cut your knee. If it's something to do with something that imparts itself on your body in your daily life or jobs, I could go to a job and I could do that job.
Yep.
Not straight away. I would watch somebody doing something and I thought, oh, that's what you do with a paintbrush. You get on the paintbrush as though you were writing, hold it there, and if you're doing a very small window, you dip the very tip of the brush into the paint, but tapped it on the side, and then applied the paint, and then go very slowly. Because I used to sit and watch them paint.
Yeah.
Paint the front of a house or something. And I said, I thought my father was clever because he spoke all those languages, and he had a fantastic memory, which I've also mentioned. He could gather up something. You could say something about whatever. I mean, I would come home from the RAF and they'd say, what are you studying now? Because I was still going to school when I joined the RAF. I joined the education classes. I went to English and geography and to history and just to learn more, because I didn't know everything.
No.
Not some things, everything. So I used to mess up what I wanted to be. I must have had them. I can remember having wanted to be something, but I was such a hedge hopper that Christmas Day I wanted to be a Father Christmas with a sledge and a sleigh and a big bag of presents and fly through the sky. Yeah. So that was me. I mean, I wanted to be a pianist. I wish I could play the piano. As I said, I used to go with the children as a 6 and 7 year old into the front room and they visited mother, grandmother rather, my mother. And good king went, so that finger, the index finger of the right hand, I couldn't do that. I never had that skill. My father could pick up a piece of music and sing it almost in C. You know, when people say that they've got a natural talent for mentally thinking in C, you know, C on the piano.
Yep.
But he could read it because he used to play in it. He was a voluntary musician as well. But he used to play the French horn, but with his left hand, because the keys were on the left hand. There were 4 keys.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where the music came from. But none of my brothers and my sister and my mother's first 5 children by the sailor, which I told you about, she married a sailor, created 5 children, got on the boat, his ship, they sailed somewhere, they docked and stood in, I think it was Melbourne, for a short while, never saw him again. So his 5 children back in Portsmouth had no father anymore, as far as the world was concerned in Portsmouth. Whether he lived in Australia or moved somewhere else, God knows. But that was my mother's misfortune, and I have often thought how my father could have taken on those first 5 children and then create 4 himself, which I was the last of the 4. So that made 9 altogether.
Yeah.
There must have been things that I desired to be. Maybe when I went to Fratton Park, 'cause I used to watch the football, and I used to stand. There's a wall at Fratton Park, and then there's a football pitch. So the wall's about that high, and I could just about see over the top of that. And I used to get down and stand by the stone. Sometimes I would go up in the stands, which gave me a look down situation. But otherwise, I went down to the stone wall and stood by the stone wall, normally at the Copner end as against the Fratton end. And I mean, the 2 goals were like that: Copner goal, Fratton goal. And I would stand somewhere along that corner or along that edge.
So you thought at the time you were thinking, oh, I'd like to be a footballer.
Oh yeah, I've been a footballer, because I used to say, you don't look the outside, give the ball to the outside right. So even then, my brain was a bossy boots. It was mentally telling the players. But then again, I picked that up because people were saying, give it to Bobby, give it to Fred, give it to Tom, give it to Harry. That's the ball at his feet. And there was Tom, Dick or Harry over there.
Yeah.
You know, give it to him because he had a clear run.
Well, should we go to this one? This is the last question in childhood. This is talking about the differences now between children today to children back then. As in activities and things that you were able to do as a child that children today can't do.
Well, I think...
Or don't do.
Funny, one of the things that sticks in my mind is the mode of dress I didn't care about. But I did when I got older. If I was wearing something, I'm going to break in here and interrupt myself. I would wear something that was in uniform.
Yeah.
And I mean in uniform. I'll tell you. When Marion and I went to see the foot person after I'd broken this leg, doing her garden.
Yep.
Walking along and falling over bloody great barrel, hidden under a bush. And of course you had paving stones on a raised level garden at the back, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
We went down to St Mary's, and this was, when did I do this? In 1984. I broke this leg. 1984. And so we went down to I don't know the technical name, there's a proper name for these people that do that. People that deal with legs and feet and all that sort of thing. Up top of the won't come. Anyway, went and sat there, and there was this Chinese chap, and Marion sat here, and I was sat over there on a different sort of, because she could come in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I was put in that chair there. Anyway, he said, okay, I want to measure your legs. So he said, what was the word he used? He turned to her and said, and you can ask her this, he's very, not regimented, there's a word. And everything I had on was blue tie, blue shirt, blue socks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it all matched. There's a special word when you get dressed up all in the same sort of colour. So he said he's not orthodox, that one. He's very orthodox, but that wasn't the word I'm searching for.
Sure.
So that's the way my brain used to work. It doesn't now. It's got too past it. But I mean, this only happened. But I was turned 80.
Yeah.
When I tripped over this bush, because there were two fences, one fence here with a gate to get to the front part from the back part, or the other way round. And this fence was drawn across. You come out from the back of the house, you went through the gateway between these two fences, which were about maybe 18 inches wide, different bushes in and flowers and plants to separate the two, like the two gardens as it is. Of course, when I was in there and I was doing the secateurs to cut down this amalgamation of climbing roses, one was quite thick, and the thorns were like bloody daggers. They were massive. So I was moving. I couldn't walk face on because I was too wide. So I had to step sideways. So if I was doing something, I was facing either the back or the front of the house, looking towards the front or looking towards the back, because I had to move sideways. So of course I did it like a dancing step. And then when I was doing the dancing step, I must have caught my foot because I was about to move. Like that fall I had at the dentist.
Yeah.
And over I went. And here, the reason I couldn't go any further, there was this stone flower pot which stood that high. It was that sort of shape,
Yeah.
right over the top. And I hit the paving stones, which were other than the earth. Bang. And I heard this noise, and I'm sure it was the crack of my bone where it broke.
Yeah.
And of course, that was at the top where they put it together by drilling it, and they put in three plugs, or whatever they call them.
Let's go back to the question though. So,
right,
what sorts of things did children do when you were a child that children now don't do?
Can you rephrase that a little bit?
So, you've told me about, getting apples from the trees and things like this, or, there's things, activities you used to get up to when you were younger that, a couple of generations later, the children nowadays don't do those sorts of things.
Oh, hopscotch.
Hopscotch, yeah.
Which is putting 1 to 10 on the paving stones, which was paving stone here, then there was 2, because they were half. If this was a paving stone, they sort of laid them that way.
Yep.
You with me? So half on and half off. So you could step into this one, and then you had to open your legs and jump into the next 2.
Yep.
Put your foot on the next one by lifting one leg out of the way, and then step onto the next 2, next one, next 2, next one, next 2, using one leg or both legs, hopping from one to the other. Why it was called hopscotch, I don't know, but I think it's still called hopscotch today.
Yep.
But children don't play that anymore. Marbles was another favourite game that we played.
Yep.
And of course, with the marbles, you played in the gutter, and if the gutter was fairly straight before where their marble had stopped, as you sort of play, because you could walk for ages, walk down one side of the road, come back the other side of the road, to cross over, walk there, still playing marbles. You must have walked bloody miles. And so we played marbles. Another thing was to get some pieces of wood. You get an old apple or an orange box or something from the person that was selling a type of item that had I mean, sometimes you get margarine and butter packed in a wooden box.
Yeah.
And the box is about so long and so wide and maybe about so deep, which as a young person, you could get your bum in one end and the feet in the front, or if you didn't do that, you had a box with one part of it, the long side for your body and your legs. Maybe you cut away part of the front panel so you could put your feet onto the board. There was the box, there was the box, there was a plank of wood going from the back of the box to about an overstretch of about 2 to 3 feet in front of the box.
Yeah.
With a hole drilled in the front of the plank that was nailed to the box. The rope either side, 2 wheels from an old pram or something, and a pair of wheels at the back. I mean, you had that so as you could steer, and you could either steer with your feet or you steer with a piece of rope, so you could sit in the box, keep your legs inside the box, and just do the steering. Somebody else is pushing.
Yeah. Sounds like a fun thing to do, to be fair. I haven't seen anybody do that for a long time.
No. What else did we do? Well, me as a fall guy and the idiot, and he didn't know any better, would climb the fences or maybe open the gate. Used to open the gate very slightly and just push it in about half an inch.
Yeah.
And if it squeaked, I'd let the latch come back where the handle was. But often people used to have a bolt down the bottom of the gate.
Yeah.
So they have a latch on the top, so it fell into the channel, so the gate was shut. And then down the bottom there was a bolt which they slid from the gate into the sort of left-sided upright.
Yeah.
Most gates seem to open up, hung on the right-hand side, but it all depends which way you were facing the gate, because if you were that side, it was the opposite, wasn't it?
Of course.
So, and that was part of the fun, and also climbing over the wall. But climbing over a wall was a bit difficult because there were, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 feet tall. And when you've been up a tree scrumping, and your shirt was filled with apples and pears, whatever.
Yeah.
You had to get up between there and the wall and somehow get your leg up to get your leg on top of the wall, or else you squash the apples. You with me?
Yeah.
Or putting yourself up the wall. So that took, I suppose you could say, a little bit of childish skill. I mean, I never gave it a thought then, you just did it automatically, because maybe once before, possibly it happened, I was climbing over a brick wall, more than a fence, and I had to get up in height, put my arms on the top and swing my legs over. And if I got too close to the fence getting over, or not high enough, I squashed apple or whatever it was, pears.
Yep.
I told you about football trot, where you kick the ball in hidden people's alleyways and gardens. I explained how that game was played. Did we play football at the time? Yeah, we must have gone away and played football. We probably played 1 or 2 of those that lived in Glenthorne Road had fathers who used to play golf, and of course he would be at work if it was like a sort of like a holiday, school holiday, because he was still working. Otherwise, on a Saturday and Sunday, invariably, he'd be home. But most people also worked Monday till Saturday, up until lunchtime Saturday. And that was their 4 weeks' work. 5 whole weekdays, 1 half weekend day, which is normally a Saturday. So, and maybe if they had quite and some of them did, a back garden with maybe sort of vegetables down the side and a lawn, not a big one, but big enough. And you could get there and there'd be a hole in one of the corners with a tin or something in it with a hole in the bottom of the tin.
Mm-hmm.
So as we can get the golf ball, knock it into the tin. So you stood at one end of the small, very small garden, or even sometimes it was the biggest garden, and you could give the ball a good whack and see how many you took to get it in the hole, in the tin.
Yeah.
So we played golf. Football, well, because we lived in Cotner and there was the railway lines and then loads of empty spaces and there were football pitches over there. So if it was like a school day or their working day, more to the point, you could go over there during sorry, I didn't mean the school day. It was school holiday. School holiday. You could go over there because all the men and that were doing their jobs and stuff. People weren't playing football on a Saturday. I can't remember them playing football on a Sunday. I think they played golf on a Sunday. I can't remember them playing football on the Sunday. But they certainly did on the Saturday. And then you could either go and watch, or maybe if during the week the goalposts were up, some you could take down, put away in a shed or something.
Yep.
But otherwise there were goalposts up and they were always up. So you could go of an evening in the summer, if you could stop up till say 8 o'clock or 8:30. You'll be back by, yes mum. So you would have to be back by 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Or 10 o'clock when it was getting dusk, as you got older.
Mm-hmm.
And you could play football at night time because, the lighting was very good up until about 9:30, 9:45, when you had to pack up playing football and run like cow to get back home in time before you get a clipper in the ear. That's all the games I can think of.
Mm.
Did we play rugby? Or probably after a style. We used to rugby, rounders, netball, all the sort of games you see now. But we used to make up a lot of our own games in chasing games.
Yep.
I think we called it tag. You go along and you touch somebody, and then you had to run because they were tagged. We didn't put a tag on them.
No.
We just by touching them, I don't know, I think it was on the back or something. So you had to get them because they were running away from you. So the back was easiest. So you slap them on the back, tagged, then you run like hell because you were the one going to be chased with the other playmates.
Yeah.
So that was one game, and all those sort of games we played. We played rugby. What sort of things did we use for a rugby ball? Some woolen articles come into mind that was sewn up like a ball.
Yeah.
And you throw that, heavy-ish. Sometimes it was like a rugby ball. But rugby wasn't a great sports thing with us. Well, when I was younger. Went fishing, we'd go fishing. We could go walk from the house, Burfield Road, over the railway lines, right out to Langston Harbour, any way along there at all, because there's none of the build-up like there is now. Go fishing, get a stick, a long bamboo cane, 6 feet long, with a bit of string, tie it on the end somewhere or another, then a hook. Then we used to put stuff on the end. I didn't like doing that, putting stuff on, especially when they used to get you know, their brothers might go fishing and get live bait.
Yeah.
Like ragworm and stuff, and they would thread that onto the hook, which, as you know, is sort of that shape. And this part has got a flat edge, which when you pulled it over, it got locked in behind that, and the fish had to take the whole thing in its mouth. Which obviously, when you pulled it quickly, it jammed itself up against the flogs, the fish's jaws, and you could pull it in, or else you just got the rod and kept pulling. If there wasn't a posh one, there wasn't a handle one. One or two had those, but otherwise it was just a piece of string, and you gave it a quick flick, catch fish, get the stick, lift it up, bring it down, get the fish off the hook, and put the fish in a whatever. And of course, Langston Harbour being very muddy, winkles and cockles.
Yep.
And you would go out there and you would get a bucket or something or other. You took some bags in that with you that didn't leak. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong word to use. You normally had something hidden away in a bush, something. It was like a bucket or a carrier thing that you could go out and get some water. Your feet were covered in bloody mud because you were walking on top of mud.
Yeah.
But there was normally a little channel of water running towards the coast, not always, but so if there was no channel of water, you would go out, get the bucket or container, get water in it, take it back, hide it somewhere near the shoreline somewhere, under some bushes. Walk out with sometimes a little piece of wood with 4 holes drilled in it that you put some rope through, tied a knot at the bottom, so you had 2 coming up here and 2 coming up there, and you tie them all around your foot. Then you would walk out on top of the mud. You didn't sink in so deep. So your feet were pretty much clean, but they still got splashed.
Sure.
But another time you didn't have that, and you just walked out on the mud, and your legs used to go right down. You had bloody job to pull your leg out. And you would dig into the mud, and the cockles and winkle, you could see them, and you got them. And if you were organised, you'll get like a sieve of some sort. You will carry this, I don't forget how we used to tie it around ourselves. Anyway, we'd attach it to our body in some way. Put all what we call inside this bag. But first we would get so much in there, take this, if you like, bag of netting, or a netting bag is more to the point. Put all the cockles and winkles in there. You probably only try to get the one thing at a time. Go cockling and go winkling. But if there were 2 together, you put one the same one. And you get to the stream and you wash them inside this netting. Shake it out, take it back. You've got a bag already tucked away, normally where you were hidden the bucket to wash the feet, etc., to keep clean. Put your shoes and socks back on. And then you went back home, got some winkle, and sometimes it's got with a bloody great bag full. But we'd be there ages because children have got no idea of time. Do you know what the time? Oh shit! You're late. Yes, Mum. Anyway, there's some winkles. There's some cockles. So that was another great thing. Fishing, crabs may be the. I can't remember ever catching a crab. And taking that back home, but that's about the only different things we might have done. As I said, we played all sorts of games. We invented games.
Yeah.
Like rounders, because you see the various films, and it was a game of baseball or whatever, and you would try to copy that with your own homemade whatever.
Yes. Well, that's all the questions I've got for you on your childhood. Our next topic on our next video will be school life. That's quite a shortish one. But just on the childhood one, is there anything else you want to add from anything to do with your childhood at all? I think we've covered pretty much everything that I can think of. But is there anything you wanted to add?
Oh, there was. What about your cup of tea?
We'll sort that out in a minute.
What about I told you this story before. I know. I think as one of my chat shows. God, his surname won't come. Potter. It did come. Thank you. Yeah, old man Potter had an allotment, and on the way, we could get over the allotment, get to his potato patch, have something or other, a stick or we'd get an old bit of wood, make a shovel out of it.
Yep.
Using your dad's tools, saw the handle, etc., and it's the spade part. We dig down into his soft earth. Occasionally some of them had a little fork that you could, and we would get under the potato plant, dig it up, lift it up, shake off all the dirt, because we were near the water, or we sometimes go down the clay pits. I'll tell you about that in a moment. That was another thing we did. Go down I'll stop there as I remember it. If we were to go and pinch some potatoes, we go to the clay pits, dig up some clay, because there was always water obviously in the bottom part of it, so it didn't go too far out, because you'd have drained yourself. Get some water, put it to one side, get some clay with the water, take it, make some slabs of clay, stick them together, because so you can make a little fire. I'm trying to think. I can remember having like a grating, a metal grating, that you put, say that's 4 slabs of concrete.
Yeah.
Not concrete, clay, and you left, but the front part of the clay wasn't solid, so you could put the fire under there. That will go through to, and on top of the at least the 2 sides and the back, you could put this plating, which obviously had holes in, so that the flames could go through, and you could put the fire underneath. Get the potatoes we'd stolen, and put them on top of this grating, or maybe put a stick in, or a piece of iron, something or other. Mm-hmm. Stick, a length of iron, stick it in the potato and put it in the fire, and you could pull it out and not burn yourself.
Yeah. How old would you have been?
5 or 6, or maybe younger and upwards. So even up until 12, 13, 14, 15. Probably didn't pinch quite so many apples and that sort of thing then. Tasty girls, I think. Can't think of anything else. We did when we got older.
No, we're going to come to older stuff anyway later.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't know when that started. We used to play kiss chase, because there were girls as well in this group of young children.
Mm-hmm. How big was the group?
20, maybe more.
Oh, quite a few of you then.
Yeah, there were a lot of kids, because I'm talking about this T-shape, Glenthorne Road, Ninian Park Avenue. Ninian Park Avenue is blocked at each end. It sort of finished there. There was the railway lines this end. Mm-hmm. And there was a garage at the other end. And then there was this alleyway, and there was this big sort of wood yard here, loads of wood all stacked up under cover and that. And there was a bit of waste ground in front of there which used to fill with water in the winter. When I cough, it's because I can't really bring up a good cough. Too painful, Mark. Yeah, so I think we played towards the end. It became more of a kiss chase game. Same sort of thing. You have teams and they chase each other and you pick sides. Right, let's make him captain today for a change. I was captain last. All right, and then I'll have Fred. Then this captain said, I'll have Bill. This one, I'll have Molly. This one, I'll have Jean. And so that's how it was. So we got like 2 teams of boys and girls, 2 lots of boys and girls. And we said, right, go on. Did we go across the railway lines? Occasionally, and not often, because we didn't go any further than Kiss Chase. But normally we used to play Kiss Chase around the seats, because there were. If I were to take you down Glenthorne Road now and take you around to the back of the houses in Glenthorne Road, because there was a railway at the back of their houses and an alleyway running all the way along so they could drive their cars round into garages. Most of them didn't have cars anyway. So they were just a garden that finished with an alleyway. Then a post to keep people off the railway line. What else was there? Can't think. It was mainly that.
I mean, I don't not only just games, but just anything in your childhood that we haven't covered. We might have covered anything, but over the last few sessions that we've done, we can always come back to it another time.
Yeah, I don't know whether something will leap up, but if you can think of what. You know when you get like a frog in your throat and you want to. I don't know how long this is going to last, but I think it was Deborah who said, she didn't use his words, but she more or less hinted it doesn't go away very quickly.
No. Well, should we call that a section of?
So is that part mainly covered?
Yeah, that's.
If anything leaps into my mind,
we'll do it.
I mean, we used to make paper airplanes and very light covered plywood, very thin.
Yep.
Play airplanes.
That's all right. We'll
Cowboys and Indians and all sort of warish type games.
Mm-hmm.
What else was it we used to make and use to play with? Oh, we play darts of some sort. I can't think of ever playing with knives. I don't think we ever took any knives. Unless we were going to cook some potatoes so we could peel them or something, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't get up, you know, people that kill. There wasn't much of that around. Wasn't much around, you know, killing them. Occasionally you get people doing that, but we were bloody nuisance. We were a hell of a nuisance, but there was nothing ever sort of vicious like it is now. You hear, you know, youngsters being attacked by other youngsters. We had fights. There were fights broke out, of course. But especially if you were playing a game like rugby with a woolen ball or proper rugby ball. Bang! You bloody did that on. No, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay, well, the next topic we're going to talk about will be schools,
Yeah.
but we'll come to that next
Next
time.
time. All
Okay,
right.
so wave goodbye to everyone. Wave.
Goodbye, everybody. That's me finished.
Okay, and we'll speak to you soon.